man in a trench coat in the dark. A woman's lost a kid sleeping in the park. Rag suits, daggers, Park Avenue. Everybody wants to talk to you about just some BS of there. Just some BS. Just some BS of yours. Just some BS. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS of ours.
Welcome back to an all-new episode of the
See, I didn't even react. I was like, yeah, whatever. We're doing that. I mean, in that case, I'd play zombie music, though. Back from the dead.
Oh,
the year is 2014.
Wow, bad things are happening again. All right.
Did you hear that Donald Trump wants to be president of America? How ridiculous is that?
It never happened. There's no way enough people in America are dumb enough to vote for him. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if that happens, I'm personally going to ruin Perfect Time from the inside.
Burn it from the ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, big boy! Energy.
I can't believe you just hit me. That was funny. Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Just Some BS podcast. Yeah. I am your host along this wild and crazy journey, the American Nick, joined as always by... the man with the plan, the bear doctor himself, Radovan. Bear doctor, how goes it?
All right, even the dog likes Bob Dylan. Yeah, this time I'm sort of thinking whether we're going to get sued twice now, because we're going after a film studio and Bob Dylan as well.
Yeah, but see, you already said Dylan doesn't sue.
Well, unless he does.
Okay, has he sued?
Well, it's only been a few seconds. Give him time.
I mean, in the past, has he ever sued anybody? Because we can't be the first people to ever borrow some of his music.
I imagine if Bob Dylan sues someone, it basically takes up a country's like half of their judiciary to just decipher what the lawsuit actually says.
Yeah, he would probably write it himself, huh? Which would be... I would feel bad for the judge.
I mean, have you read his books?
No.
He's written two, two that were actually released. One is Tarantula, which he wrote in 1966 as, I guess, a LSD coping mechanism or a guide or whatever it is. It is
a guide to LSD?
Well, it is. The problem with it, it's very difficult to say what it is because it's impossible to understand. It is Dadaist almost. And the other one is Chronicles, which is an excellent book which charts his sort of slightly perhaps less known periods of his life. Mm-hmm. It's an autobiography. Apart from the fact that it isn't, because most of it, almost passage by passage, is just taken from someplace else. As he does with his songs. So I guess if he actually does sue someone, the lawsuit is either going to be incomprehensible or he just copy-paste someone else's lawsuit.
Okay, but if he copies and pastes someone else's lawsuit, it won't really relate to suing us. So we will win.
Unless someone else sues us. Like U2 sues us.
Or Metallica.
Yeah.
Or what was the other ones that we were trying to get?
I forget now.
Okay, well there has been so many. For those of you that might be lost, listen back to episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12. 13 maybe as well. Those tend to be the ones that we attempt to get sued for something. I'm not too worried about it. When it comes down to it, if he does hear this and he does sue us, the downloads will go through the roof. And the Patreon pledges will start to be like those that are in the mirror world where, we're billionaires and we don't have to work and we just sit and record all day.
Yeah,
and,
see, when we get sued in that world, that'll screw us up, because then we'll have to, pay out money. But
but we'll have enough money to pay out in that world, so I'm not worried about it.
What are we going to pay out now? Lily's toys.
Yeah, are you going to sue me for...
Anyway, it was an appropriate song because of, how you're feeling. I felt it went with the mood.
It definitely did. The only thing I really have news-wise that was exciting comes from the U.S. side of the pond, and it's good old Sean Spicer.
Oh yeah, he resigned.
Yeah,
or was let go, or whatever happened there.
Yeah, and it's funny because a New York Times article that came out this past week, and snippets of it were running around prior to it coming out. First off, why the hell would Donald Trump, who says that New York Times is failing multiple times, and it's fake news, and they're liars, and all this other nonsense, why would he grant them a interview? Don't really understand that, other than his ego. Fine. Second thing behind it was his attack on Attorney General Jeff Sessions, saying that he might not have been the right choice for the job because of the way that he's doing things. And then it came out, he asked his lawyers whether or not he can pardon himself. Now, I've done things wrong in the past. I am not an angel. I have never thought, I wonder if I could personally figure out a way to make sure I don't get in trouble for something that I've done in the past. And here's the President of the United States asking lawyers, can I pardon myself? Guilty conscience? I don't know. Why do you ask that question?
Well, I suppose if it's just to speed up the process. If, say, I'm the President of the United States,
all hail Master Radovan,
and someone accuses me of doing something.
Yes.
And it turns out a lot of media attention and time is spent analyzing it. There's expensive prosecutions, people talking about impeachment, etc. We're talking millions of dollars at this rate being spent on it, and not just millions of dollars. That has which could be spent on walls and solar panels for walls, or tweets. I don't know if that costs money. But also media attention, which could be used for constructive things like walls and solar panels for walls and immigrants and boo, or just giant front to back headshots of you,
okay,
or of me as
of you.
I'm the president, right? Anyway, what I'm saying is that you can spend all that attention and finance in a more constructive way. Now, if I was unsure of the fact whether I'm guilty or not,
okay,
then I'd let the legal process take its due course, as one should. If I am guilty, then one has to make the moral choice of, well, do I do a Nixon, where I do, well, I'm so guilty that, right, this isn't going to end well, so I'll just, scuttle off, and, the guy after me pardons me. Or I cling on to power desperately, and, brace for the worst. But if I know I'm innocent, then for someone who loves America as much as Donald Trump, and I'm sure I'd love America equally if I was the president, it must hurt to see taxpayers' money wasted on pursuing an innocent... It's just OJ all over again. Pursuing an innocent man, and the media upset, generating anxiety for themselves. You've been talking print papers. So these are written and read by really old people with heart problems, and this sort of thing causes anxiety. Impeachment of a president. Remember Clinton, the heart attacks that caused? So it would be my civic duty, because I love the country so much, to pardon myself to put an end to all this, because I'm innocent anyway.
Then why would you need to pardon yourself if you're innocent anyway?
Because some people don't agree. But if I did it, so I know I'm innocent. I mean, you just have to stop the smears and the fake news and the fake facts and the fake president who did that and the fake crime and the fake laws and generally just the fake surrounding the whole thing.
Shockingly, which is kind of how do I put this? So normally when we sit down to record a podcast, as of the late, something disastrous, something horrific, something with global consequence happens usually the week beforehand, and there's something other than last week's rant of Melissa Cole that's gone on that has really kind of triggered things in the world. And this week, I mean, let's be honest, bad things happen because, well, it's the world. But, I mean, is anything that really... What is one thing that jumped out at you that said, oh, wow, what's going on this week in the world?
Wow, way to put me on the spot there. Panicked scurrying the news. No, there's nothing. I mean, there's stuff that there's overspill from last episode, but I mean, there's I was thinking the same thing when I was sort of going through my material that I've prepared for the episode, because I do that shit. I don't turn to my co-person and say, right, I'm out. What? I'm hungover. What? Do you have something? Like, were you alive the past week? I actually prepare things so that those sort of situations don't
You've
happen.
actually done this exact thing to me. Do you not recall the last time we recorded here where you showed up hungover?
Stop spreading smears.
Oh, am I living in the past? It's all about the future?
Yeah, have you not made mistakes in the past?
Yes.
Forgive and forget.
I am forgiving, but forgetting,
Nick.
I don't know about that one.
You're just a fake Nick.
Fake Nick with fake news?
Well, actually, later on we might get to the origin of fake news, but
The origin of fake news.
One of the possible origins. But no, there isn't really much that has happened. I mean, it's all just the usual crap. I mean, U.S. Trump is trumping. Azerbaijan again is accusing Armenia of breaking ceasefire, and Armenia, surprisingly, is accusing Azerbaijan of breaking ceasefire. Brexit is still a thing.
Brexit seems to be like that. When sometimes you get like maybe a hair caught in the back of your throat and you just can't get it out and it's just annoying all the time? That's kind of where we're at with Brexit now. It's there, it's annoying, but nothing's being done about it.
Well, I mean, it's basically just going to be, from now on, it's going to be a year and a half of just
begging, pleading.
Yeah.
The EU saying, no, you can't have this.
But big developments in the beer world.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I did not read about this week.
It didn't happen this week.
Okay, when did it happen? Last week? 2 weeks ago?
Last month-ish.
Okay, last month. Tell you how far out of the loop I am on this. All right, so what's the big news in beer?
You might have actually caught this. We used to have, back when we were doing Untapped, we used to go visit this local friendly
Watering hole?
how shall I describe this? Beer dealer. Based in London Fields, and they had a brewery called
Odd enough,
perhaps unimaginatively, London Fields Brewery.
Well, the marketing budget went somewhere else.
No, I mean, moving on. Yeah.
Hi, Edwin.
the brewery's owner had a certain past, which perhaps at the height of the craft beer boom, I mean, it's still a boom now, but what I would call the height of the genuine craft beer boom, back when craft beer was still craft beer, rather than just when it actually meant something. It was always been a very diffuse term, but it was, it used to mean a certain type of thing. Now it's just very liberally used by everybody as a marketing thing, which we knew was going to happen. But back then it was the boom of still sort of small breweries. It was still a limited scene, just about sort of breaking into the mainstream, and it was all the breweries were sort of trying to grab onto the thing that was going to catapult them into becoming the next Brewdog, the next Sierra Nevada.
Yeah.
And at the forefront of this, or perhaps one of the top candidates at the time, alongside people like Beavertown, 5 Points, etc., was London Fields. And at that critical time, they were expanding into events, etc. The past of the owner caught up with them, and turns out, he was in prison because he was selling drugs to bankers and celebrities,
hedge funds managers, and everyone,
organizing sex orgies, and I really wish we could have gotten to know him a bit closer. He sounds like a fun guy.
Meeting him back in those days would have been a lot different than meeting him on the days where he was riding his bike into the brewery to say hi and then riding his bike home to get to his kids.
Yeah. See, we thought he was riding his bike because he was being a hipster and healthy. Turns out the government took his car.
Yeah.
Well, he was then sentenced to prison and got out early on the proviso that he would repay the money. He started the brewery, and that was his attempt at repaying the money.
Yes.
Turns out he wasn't repaying the money. So
wasn't paying VAT, wasn't paying.
Well, no, that came later. First, it was not paying the money for the drugs case.
Yes.
That hit the beer world as a bit of a shock. As part of these proceedings and investigations, turns out he also wasn't paying VAT. The added irony of the whole thing, and wasn't paying beer tax. The added irony of the whole thing was that because of lawsuit number 1, they froze their ability to pay, which exacerbated lawsuit number 2 because he wasn't paying taxes. Because of lawsuit number 1, he couldn't pay taxes.
Yes.
Which was quite. It was a wonderful bureaucratic thing. And to his credit, he tried to keep it going. Some people left. He got new people. They tried to grow the business. Eventually, the brewery was shut down. They had to contract brew, and it was put up for sale for £1 million. And now it's been sold to the great business minds of Carlsberg, who in a joint venture with none of us thought it would get sold because it's it was a good brand name, but at that point it had such a toxic legacy, it would be difficult to turn around. Somehow Carlsberg thought they can do it, so in a joint venture with Brooklyn Brewery, they bought London Fields, and in what I assume must have been a very astute negotiating tactic, they went to the London Fields people and said, how much do you want for this? And London Fields said, we want £1 million, presumably, little finger in their mouth, as they said so. And the Carlsberg negotiating team, huddled up, they called their New York office and, got the best legal and financial minds, and, how do we negotiate? And they turned around and they said, all right, we'll give you $4 million, but that's our final offer. And the London Fields guys presumably turned around and said, we stopped taking cocaine after the lawsuit, haven't we? Is this a trip, or is
are we falling back in? It's an acid redo.
So turning back to face the Carlsberg people, I assume they said yes.
Okay.
It's a good trip. Might as well see where it goes. Turns out it wasn't a trip, and that's genuinely what happened. So Carlsberg and Brooklyn bought London Fields, which would make you think, right, £4 million. That can be used to repay that debt. Which is where we last left that drug debt story.
Yes.
And the tax debt story.
Yes.
Turns out that can't happen because Jules, the gentleman who started London Fields, and who was the owner in question, he no longer owned London Fields at this point. It was owned by his dad.
Oh, yeah. That's
And
right.
his dad isn't sued, so that money wouldn't necessarily go to the repayment, which I thought was a very dodgy thing. But then I looked into it, and actually, so now we have two lawsuits. We have the drug lawsuits, and we have the tax lawsuits.
Yes.
The drug lawsuits actually ended by that point, and he was forgiven the debt, which was £3 million at that point. He was forgiven the debt, and his parents, after his parents promised to pay £100,000.
Okay.
And as part of the parents paying £100,000 to the state dropped the charges.
Yes.
And Jules's father became the owner of London Fields.
For £100,000.
Yes.
Okay.
A few months later, London Fields was sold for £4 million.
Okay.
Which now is Jules's dad's
Okay.
part. They have other owners, but
Yes.
But yeah, you know.
So is our friend Jules going back to prison?
So the tax case hearing is later this month. So I'm sure we'll keep you updated. It's kind of a fall from grace for this whole craft industry. Now moving on, I mean we've covered in an earlier episode. We covered Brewdog's sellout of 22% of their shares to a private equity house, and that has faced some backlash. Considering, I mean, Brewdog's somewhat hypocritical attitude, if you might call it that.
Have they decided to release their Pilsner called Sellout yet?
Corporate sellout? No.
Yeah.
No, not that I've heard.
Because that would be the ultimate hipster thing for them to do at this point. To just be like, yep, we sold out, so here it is.
Yeah, I mean, Brewdog built their entire brand around being against breweries that sell out, against being corporate breweries, against being people who sue people for trademarks, etc. And then Brewdog had their own trouble, which it seems to have reached a point where people are beginning to get a bit tired of this. I mean, Brewdog really hasn't been... I mean, we've talked about that craft beer, the two stages of the craft beer movement, when it was the boom of a niche group of people, and then now it's a mainstream boom. The niche people have left Brewdog, so to speak, a long time ago.
Yeah, early on.
Well, not early on, but it's been, a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because they realize they're no longer... I mean, they're extremely successful and good for them, but they no longer represent UK craft beer, so to speak, which is something they vehemently contest, and you will find a lot of people who would disagree with what I've just said, and fine, disagree.
That's cool.
If you want to engage in a debate, perhaps, write to, not us, write to Nick, and he'll relay information to me. Where do they write?
jsbspod@gmail.com.
Jesus fucking Christ. Go on! Be on top of your game!
Okay, or you can find them on Facebook, facebook.com/JSBSpod. Reach out on Twitter @JSBSpod. You can always send us a message on Instagram. Oh, Jesus Christ, you fucking rat bastard. You can find us on Instagram @JSBSpod. Or you can go by the website, jsbspod.com. And Radovan just dumped water on my head as I'm trying to do the
Wake up!
spiel. That was kind of a dick move.
Was it invigorating?
No, it wasn't, because it was more just like, why the hell is my head pissing?
Alright, whilst you ponder that.
So that, if you want to debate Radovan, and let's be honest, in this world, it's completely different than the parallel universe, so why don't you go over to patreon.com/JSBSpod and give us a bit of money, because if we are going to get sued by the likes of Bob Dylan or the Sue Happy Brewdog, it'd be nice to have a bit of money in the bank to laugh at them with, because it's not like we're going to pay them.
Anyway, back to our theme.
Yes.
Right, so the people have left the craft beer sort of niche group has left Brewdog a while back. Now even there's a... It was not the case in the corporate world in terms of other breweries, because, well, you kind of want to be friends with Brewdog. They have bars, etc. They do actually, as part of their own brand and as part of their own self-gratifying image of being craft beer pioneers, they do promote other brands.
Yeah.
But now we see the first signs of a proper black backlash. Burning Sky Brewery, the rising stars of the UK craft beer scene from Brighton, they've withdrawn all their beers from Brewdog pubs.
Oh, wow.
Because they, as a reaction to Brewdog's pursuit of trademarks, which they didn't feel was cool, man. Particularly saying that they own the trademark for the use of the word punk in the food and beverage industry.
Yeah, because that's punk rock, and that's hip, that's cool, and that's all about being about the people, is to trademark a word like that.
So that was Burning Sky, but that came at the same time as, or a little after, a cease and desist letter was publicly submitted to Brewdog from what they call themselves the global punk community.
Ooh, okay.
And it was some of the... I don't quite know how to feel about this, because as far as I understand, it's not very punk to send cease and desist letters. But I guess it's an ironic move. But yeah, several leading punk organizations and bands. It's a massive list.
Holy shit.
Of bands from around the world.
Yeah.
They've ended their letter with kind regards and a middle finger salute. Basically saying there's absolutely nothing punk about Brewdog, and it's not up to Brewdog to determine what punk is or isn't. Hold on. And in a wonderful twist of fate, the third blow to the Brewdog brand that happened recently is they've actually lost a trademark dispute where the estate of Elvis Presley sent a cease and desist letter to Brewdog for their Elvis Juice beer, which they felt, Elvis Juice IPA, which they felt was kind of using Elvis's brand and name to create an association where there isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brewdog went all out, because I mean Elvis Juice has been around for a while. Brewdog went all out to the point where Martin Dickey and James Watts, the founders of Brewdog, change their name to Elvis Watt and Elvis Dickey in their typical sort of PR stunt, etc. And I thought there wasn't much to it, but it was ruled. It was ruled that start that sentence again. It was ruled by the UK Intellectual Property Office that the estate of Elvis Presley do have a case, and Brewdog cannot sell that beer under the name Elvis Juice.
Well, the king has not left the building.
Well, he might have, but he certainly wasn't drinking a Brewdog IPA with him.
Well, and when it comes down, it's this one right here. You don't mess with... there's certain estates you don't mess with. You don't mess with the estate of Marilyn Monroe, because it makes millions and millions of pounds per year. You don't mess with the estate of Michael Jackson. And you do not mess with the estate of Elvis Presley. Because those three will always win. Because those are global names that almost every human being on this planet has heard before. I mean, Elvis is known in like little parts of like Zimbabwe where they barely speak any language at all. It just clicks and clacks, but they know who the fuck Elvis is.
It was actually in the ruling it was mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing here because I've closed it now. But something to the tune, yeah, we know you believe yourself to be extremely famous, but Elvis is still a more recognizable brand name than you are. Which must have been very difficult to
arrogant little pricks think we're bigger than Elvis
to justify. But to finish off our, shall we say, trilogy of beer stories.
Okay.
Because we promised beer stories last week and we didn't deliver, so we delivered this time.
Beer.
So finishing our trilogy of beer stories on a slightly lighter way.
Okay.
Both in terms of the actual beer and in terms of the story. Nick, if you were to go to your... I mean, there's a Tesco.
Yes.
Nearby. If you were go to your local convenience store to do your shopping, what kind of vehicle would you take? How would you get there?
Well, I would personally walk because it's so close. But if I was going to, say, like a big Asda for a big shop, I'd probably drive a car.
And what would you have in your car if you would drive to a convenience store?
I mean, you know, I might have my rucksack to carry the stuff out with. I might have, I don't know, radio, cell phone. I don't know where we're going. Not much. Why?
Well, no, because this was, you know, I'm trying to introduce more quizzes into the podcast, and this was kind of a covert attempt at that. It was the first episode of the Are You the CEO of Anheuser-Busch or Not quiz. And I'm sorry, Nick, you scored 0 out of 1. You're not the CEO of Anheuser-Busch, or should I say former CEO. Because how... Well, no, he's no longer CEO. Because how... And this is his actual name.
Yes.
August Adolphus Bush IV.
Yes.
Clearly some names to some parts of society never go out of fashion.
Yeah, we'll just... let's move along, because he's in a box right now.
Oh yeah, I forgot about our friend August.
Yeah. He's in a box.
Yeah, he's in a box. Well, August Adolphus Bush IV. You see, when he goes to a convenience store,
yeah,
he travels in a helicopter.
Okay.
But not just any helicopter.
Yeah.
He was apprehended by the police recently on the parking lot of a shopping mall after responding in an incoherent manner, and it was suspected that he was drunk as he was trying to fly his helicopter from the shop parking lot.
Hold on. Okay. So, I'm at home, and I really want a frozen pizza. So, instead of jumping in my car, I run out to my helipad. I hop into my helicopter. Bear in mind, I've probably been inebriated, and I think this is a good idea. So, I fly down to the Piggly Wiggly, and I land in the parking lot, luckily not hitting any cars. I go in, I do my shopping at the Piggly Wiggly, still inebriated. I come out, and there's police there. Am I painting the right picture? I'm just trying to make sure.
Well, you're not inebriated. He wasn't actually inebriated, and it's going to be discussed. It's going to be, determined. What we don't know what was going on yet. Okay. But the police searched his helicopter.
Oh shit!
It's not bad, but I think it'll become apparent what it was. The police searched his helicopter, which he took to grocery shopping, and found 4 loaded guns.
As you do. I mean, come on. I'm in my helicopter. Somebody might try to jack me.
8 Shitzu dogs.
Oh my god, he was high. He had to have been high.
And an elephant's supply of Xanax and other diazepams.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. What the hell was he doing? Why would you need... Okay. Now, let me preface this by saying, as someone who's lived in America, I understand the whole gun thing. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. So, okay, he has guns because, well, that's just what they do.
He had a Magnum.
But a Shih Tzu.
He has a Desert Eagle with him.
He had a Desert Eagle 40 cal. Okay. For those of you that don't understand, Jesus fucking Christ, I can't even make a I can't. Okay. So a Desert Eagle 40 cal. Okay. This is the most powerful handgun on the entire planet. Think of a, I don't know, 4-inch steel plate. And think about shooting that 4-inch steel plate from a distance of, I don't know, 3-4 meters. It will put a hole through that 4-inch steel plate. I don't...
Yeah, but what if you can't open the can of sweet corn? What are you going to use?
It'll fucking destroy a can of sweet corn. I've seen what a Desert Eagle does to a huge watermelon. I've seen what it does to a single beer can.
Squishy?
It hit this can of beer, and you would have thought that somebody had put a stick of dynamite inside this can of beer. There was nothing left of the can. There was nothing left of the can of beer but a wet spot. Not even shreds of metal. It completely destroyed it because it hit it with such velocity. I'm trying to figure out a way to defend this. I'm trying really hard, very hard, to figure out a way to say that it's okay that he did this. Okay, here's the scenario. Okay. So, Augustus is a millionaire, probably worth $100 million or something along those lines. And so he's a bit eccentric. And he has the Desert Eagle because in his mind's eye, he thinks everybody wants to get a piece of me. And so what he does is he will keep the Shitzus as his guard dogs. And he will use the Desert Eagle to scare off any would-be assassins. And the Xanax is I got nothing.
Oh no, there's a perfectly rational explanation for this.
Okay, I'd love to.
He is one of two options. He's either a survivalist or he's just really paranoid about.
But a survivalist
flying helicopters.
Okay.
Because helicopter is not. It's not like a plane. If a plane crashes, frankly, 99% chance you're going to die.
Yes.
Helicopters are a bit slower. You can, when they crash, you can survive.
True.
Obviously, the answer there is don't fly a helicopter. But what if I live on a hill. So if I were to go down to my local Tesco, there's two. I need to go either downhill, but that means going back uphill, or I need to go uphill and then downhill. But in either scenario, I have to go uphill at some point. I really don't like doing that.
So you chose to live on a hill.
I chose to live on a hill. Now, if I had August Adolphus Bush IV money,
yes,
I'd still choose to live on a hill because I like where I live. But I'd mitigate the whole going up a hill bit by getting a helicopter.
Okay.
You could say get a car, but I don't like driving because there's other cars and pedestrians and I need to watch out for that, and when I don't, I get into trouble and it's just uncomfortable. Because if I get into trouble, then I have to go to court, and there's other people there, and I just don't like. I don't like. I'm a sociopath. I don't like
people.
I don't like people.
Yes. We've established this.
So the car is kind of plus cars, fuel, etc. It's not good for the environment. Now with a helicopter, there's no other helicopters over the skies of Highgate, so I could easily just take off. Fly over to my Tesco. Get out, buy the groceries, and go back, right? It's practical. I don't see people. It's brilliant. It's foolproof.
Except for, I know your Tesco's. There's nowhere to park a helicopter around those Tesco's. Are you saying land on the roof?
Imagine that. Okay, so I'll fly somewhere with a parking lot. I'll fly down to the big Sainsbury's in Camden.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually has Dubonnet, so that's even better. I can just buy that when I'm there as well. But anyway, I'd fly the helicopter.
Okay.
Avoid going back up a hill.
Yep.
Avoid seeing people. It's the perfect solution. But that it still doesn't. What if the helicopter crashes?
True.
What if the helicopter crashes? I end up in some wilderness. So, what do you need when you crash in the wilderness?
Hold on. Wilderness in between Highgate and, say, the big Sainsbury's in Camden? Are you going the long way around towards Richmond?
What I forgot to add is I also have a diazepam addiction,
Oh, okay.
as we clearly see. So I know that I might have some erratic flight paths.
Okay, but that makes sense. So you are going out towards Richmond, you're crashing in Richmond?
Or even Hampstead Heath or something.
Okay.
Right. So you crash.
Yep.
You're left with nothing. What do you need to survive? Number one, you need to protect yourself from wild animals, and you also need something to hunt.
Okay.
Guns.
Yes.
But what if your gun runs out of ammo?
Okay.
Then you can no longer protect yourself, then you can no longer hunt. You need another gun.
Okay.
Because you're like me, you're not very good with gadgets.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to unload and reload a weapon. So I'll just get 4 weapons. All fully loaded, so I don't have to do that menial task.
Of reloading.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have 4 guns, right? But Ilan, maybe there's no animals to be seen. Maybe they were scared off by the helicopter crash. Right? So that's one problem. The other problem is, what if I'm bored? You crash in the wilderness, there's nothing to do. You can twiddle your thumb, you can count to 100, but that's only going to take you so far. There's only so much in a day you can masturbate before it starts hurting. It's 7, by the way. So you need to be entertained.
Don't.
So you get dogs, Shitzus. They're cute. So you get a Shih Tzu to keep you entertained. 8 Shih Tzus will keep you preoccupied. Time will fly.
Okay.
But what if you get peckish, and all the animals have been scared off by the crash? So you kill a Shih Tzu just to keep going. You roast it, you eat it, etc. Just to keep going until the animals come back. But it's okay because you still have 7 more Shih Tzus, right? And even if you have 7 and you get peckish again, you again shoot 1, but you still have 6 more Shih Tzus, right? To keep you entertained, and it'll keep your mind off of your Shih Tzu eating habits. Shih Tzu eating grin. Anyway, it's a sensible approach, but eventually you're going to run out of Shih Tzus. You've killed the last one, and that's when the depression hits. That's when you're going to get sad.
Okay.
And that's where Xanax comes in.
Okay.
And you're sorted. And that's why you travel to your convenience store in a helicopter with 4 loaded guns, 8 Shih Tzus, and a fuckload of Xanax.
I think that, okay, just throwing out there, Mr. Bush, if you need somebody to explain why it was this is going on,
If you need a lawyer.
feel free to send an email to jsbspod@gmail.com, because I think Master Radovan has come up with your defense that might be actually believable in somewhere in America.
I don't know. How would you call him in an endearing way? Dolphy, or Gusty.
Augusty.
I know how you feel, and it's okay. We can talk. I'm here for you.
Yeah. I can't believe you turned that around to something to where it would be viable.
Yeah, but it's completely viable because him and I think alike. It's just I'd rather stay poor than unleash Anheuser-Busch beer onto the world, because that's the real evil here. But still, if we had a weekly man of the episode or person of the episode award,
Yeah.
Mr. Bush would still not get it.
Oh gosh, what? Wait. Okay. Go for it.
That award would go to Arturo Garcia
Arturo Garcia.
of Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And I know what you're thinking. He's going to be some sort of murderer. No, not that kind of person of the episode.
Yeah.
Arturo Garcia is... When you have a family,
Yeah?
when you hear a story of a family, and you know, there's kids, there's a wife, there's a husband, and say you're reading a story or you're watching a film, and the man turns to the wife and goes, "Honey, I'm just popping out for some cigarettes. I'll be right back."
Now, hold on. I have to preface this as saying, why is it a southern guy that's telling his wife he's going to pop up for cigarettes and be right back? Because I know how this story ends. It's been a trope in movies all the time. But why did you have to use a southern accent? Why couldn't it be, I don't know, somebody that's like, hey, love, heading out to the store to get a bit of bags and a pint of brew. I'll be back. Like, why does it have to be southern?
Because...
In your head, those are the only people that do that?
No, Nick, this is... Oh my god, social justice warrior alert. No, Nick, because I'm actually trying to be inclusive here. Right?
Yeah, but if it's a Garcia, I'd be like, hey, ese.
Because it's the only accent I know how to do.
That's what I wanted you to actually say. That's what I was trying to get.
That's how... This is... What, you know, when I make that accent, that's what Spanish people sound like to me.
No wonder why you're not allowed in Mexico. Again. After that one time.
Anyway, when he says, "Honey, I'm going out to..." Yeah. Okay, fine. I'll do a Spanish accent for you.
Okay.
Honey, I'm going outside to buy some Elvis cigarettes. I'll be right back. Mm-hmm. That better?
What the fuck is the for? Where does that come in?
Billy Bob Thornton, Sling Blade.
I know it is, but I just don't know why all of a sudden.
Or is it Los? I don't know. Never took Spanish if you didn't know. Anyway, so it makes you think of two things when you see that.
Mm-hmm.
One, the guy's genuinely just going to the store to get some cigarettes.
Never happens.
Or B, he's never coming back.
Yeah.
He's pulling a runner. Arturo, however, found a happy medium.
Okay.
Where he... And it's a happy story. Until you think about it.
Okay.
So Arturo turned to his wife and said, "Honey, I'm going to get some cigarettes." And he went to the airport and took out, in all fairness, their life savings, and bought a plane ticket to Russia to go watch Mexico in the Confederations Cup, because his wife told him he can't do that because it would cost their whole life savings. So he didn't want to upset her, but he still wanted to watch the football. So he just told his wife he's going to get some cigarettes and flew to Russia to watch Mexico in the Confederations Cup, which, if you follow football, is kind of like a World Cup, but nobody cares. And he came back.
But what did Mexico win?
Well, see, this was his rationale. He had a very good feeling about Mexico.
Yeah. And
he felt that if they won, it would completely justify the spend.
Okay.
And you know, it would be something he'd remember for the rest of his life, and his family would remember for the rest of his life, because they live in a slum all of a sudden. Mexico got all the way to the semi-finals, which was where they were the dark horse of the tournament. They go all the way to the semi-finals, where they lost.
Okay.
But they still went to the playoff for the third place, which still was a major achievement.
Yeah.
Which they lost.
Oh shit!
So they finished fourth. So
Okay.
it was a good run up until the point where it actually would have been worthwhile turns out it wasn't.
Okay, so he goes home.
He went home.
With the 4th place finish?
Yeah, we don't know what happened then. It doesn't matter. The moral of the story is he came back.
Wait, no, what do you mean it doesn't matter?
And yeah, it's a story of a man's passion and complete disregard for the family he's spent decades building.
But we don't even know what happened to him. Like, we don't know if he came home and his wife beat him over the head with a mallet and his kids burned him alive. Like, we don't know what happened.
But that wouldn't be a happy story, would it?
No, but there'd be an ending. It's like getting 3/4 of the way through the movie and then turning it off. And going, Peaked here. It was good. I don't know what the ending was like, but it was nice.
But quite funny if we ended the podcast episode now.
Just cut it off.
Yeah. Right, Nick. I've been yapping on. Do you have anything to say before I start yapping on again?
Okay, so we're going to go back across the ocean. So, it was a busy week, but we're going to...
Now there's an ocean between, the continent and the former colony.
Okay. So, we're going to my home state of California, to a city called Santa Ana, California, up near Los Angeles. So, okay, have you ever... This is another quiz section. Have you ever been at the shop and not really paid attention to how much was on either your debit card or how much was on your credit card, and so you hit the tap to pay and it declines?
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay. We've all kind of been there. Hey, shit happens sometimes. You go, oh, shit, what the fuck? Where's my money at? All right. Police in Santa Ana, California are looking for a suspect who was caught on surveillance camera going on a rampage in 7-Eleven after his card was declined. A newly released surveillance video was taken February 11th shows a white male who appears in his 30s attempting to buy a 75-cent bag of peanut M&Ms. When the card is declined, the man lunges towards the cashier, hitting him in the head, shoving the register off the counter, and then pushing everyone else he sees. As he walks towards the door, he throws a handful of bananas at another clerk and knocks over another terminal. I think somebody had a little sugar rush going on.
Mr. Bush should have shared some of his Xanax.
I'll leave a link for the video.
Was it the same store?
No, I don't believe it was the same store. There's a bunch of GIFs out there of it. I'll show one to Red Event now so you can see this guy going absolutely batshit crazy. That was over 75 cents.
The guy's wearing glasses. Guys with glasses shouldn't be violent. Giving us a bad rep, although I'm not wearing glasses. But I mean, that's...
I saw this and I started giggling in the office.
You know what? I mean, obviously he should pay for the damage he causes. Clearly he can't. But in a way, I applaud him because I'd like to talk to him because he is from the alternative universe.
Yeah,
where our podcast is usually successful. It's now government mandated listening for school children.
I mean, the president of Turkey has our podcast opening theme playing on everyone's cell phone instead of the Ring, as we learned last week's episode.
Yeah, but I mean, it's someone who I really admire, that sort of unfiltered reaction to a minor inconvenience. Because I mean, how many times has it happened? Say you're going through an oyster barrier, and you have your pace and you time it. There's a person next to you, and there's a certain rhythm to it. For those who don't know, on London Underground, if you're entering the Underground, there is a barrier. You need to tap in with your contactless card or your Oyster card, which is like a pass thing, and the barrier opens and you come through. Now, obviously, during rush hour, these things, there's a certain time delay for them, for you touching and the thing opening. So it's kind of almost a beautiful. It's like you watch the synchronized athletic events from Soviet Russia.
Yes.
Or now from North Korea, where you have thousands of people in perfect harmony and unity doing this athletic movement. Well, London Underground in rush hour is just that.
Yes.
It's a perfectly synchronized, perfectly timed mass movement of people. And you have your pace, and you almost subconsciously have your stride. You tap in, you move through and the person in front of you and the person behind you has that as well. You tap in, and it's this endless snake that commutes to work.
Yeah, and it's symbolic of you fall in love with that kind of rhythm.
Yeah,
and it helps to. It's that first part of your day or the end of your day that you look forward to, and okay, this is going to be the one part of my day that's not going to go bad because everybody knows what to do.
It's not even that. You don't even think of it consciously. It's just, you don't even notice it.
Okay.
When you're commuting, you just switch your brain off, and it's almost like being asleep during the day.
Okay.
You switch your brain off and just let your procedural memory take you from home to work. You don't even notice you're commuting until something goes wrong. Until you're in that snake towards the oyster barrier, and the person in front of you suddenly stops and opens their jacket or their handbag and starts fumbling around for the card they should have had prepared from the moment they entered the station, and the snake dies. The movement, the perfect synchrony, this beautiful mass of human tumbles, crashes, collapses. The house of cards blown away by this selfish act of incognizance, of rudeness, of inability to sort one's shit out. And at that point, such a minor thing, because all in all, this delays you by about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
They finally tap in and the thing continues. But it takes you out of the zone, and this minor inconvenience, I look at that person, and I want to do what that man had the bravery to do. All around me.
You just want to start fucking hitting people?
Yes, I want to grab that person by the hair, pull them back, shove a banana down their face. I want to run around crazily and smashing everything with my flappy wrists. I just want to go mental whenever that happens. I want to do what that man had the courage. That perhaps we should all take the time to have the courage to do. Because if all of us reacted like that, that sort of shit wouldn't happen.
I in no way condone violence, nor do I in any way condone acts of rage, but there has been times when, to me it's not even when somebody's fiddling around trying to find their card. I make it a point to know exactly how much is on my Oyster card, so I'm not that person that comes up and in a busy line, the red light comes up and you're rejected. And the red comes up, and that means, okay, something's wrong. You either don't have money on your card, or you hit it wrong, whatever else. But those people that then, in turn, stand there and wait, and do it again. And for me, I travel during the very heavy times, and when that happens, I do feel the need to just grab a hold of somebody and throw them on the track.
But there's a way to deal with this enshrined in law.
Okay.
With people, I know the frustration, because basically what you need to do when this happens. So sometimes the card reader doesn't read it properly, so you get the red light.
Yes.
What you need to do then is to step outside of the box.
Yes.
Wait for it to turn to orange, and then you do it again.
Yes.
Right. That's what you do. Some people stay in there.
Mm-hmm.
And keep on tapping.
Yes.
Despite the light being red.
Yes.
But it's very clearly stated in the UK law that these people can be sectioned and taken to their nearest psychiatric hospital and or police station for their own safety, so that they don't harm others and others don't harm them. All you need to do is, if you're a medical professional yourself or you're a police officer, etc., you have the power to issue a temporary section. If you're not one of those people, find the nearest one near you and say, this person is insane, they're unwell, please section them for their own safety. And you laugh. They're not insane because, it's Albert Einstein very clearly defined insanity as repeating the same thing again and expecting a different result.
Mm-hmm.
They're clearly partaking in that sort of behavior where they're repeating the same thing again that got them trouble in the first place, getting the same result. Therefore, they are insane. Therefore, by law, they can be sectioned.
Okay.
That's why I always travel with a straitjacket. If that happens in front of me, put it on the person, put a post-it note with the address of the nearest mental institution, put them in a box, and
ship them away,
and throw them on a passing vehicle. They always get there somehow.
All right. Well, this week we're taking a break from the norm. Every other podcast we will be introducing a new segment where, as I normally talk about serial killers and the great things that they do for the world as far as population control and always having a reason to walk down a dark alley and have the brass cojones to say piss off and keep walking when you're inebriated. Master Radovan is of that accord. He has come to me with a new idea.
Oh, does this mean we're not doing a mass murderer today?
No, we are, but we're doing him at the very end of the show after your holiday guide.
Oh wow! Ending on a high note.
Yes, we're going to end on a very high note. But what we'll do is we'll segment it to where now we can put yours in to where it's not a person back to back.
Well, this is not a person.
Okay.
These are people.
These are people. All right.
People.
So,
right. Yes.
Do you have a name for this segment?
Bloody brains.
Bloody brains. Okay.
But in a British sense, bloody, not in the covered in blood.
Okay.
Well, ish. Well, no, I figured, there's so many unhinged people in the world. We might as well that don't murder people.
Mm-hmm.
We might, or people who are unusual in all ways that the human mind deems acceptable to survive beyond infancy.
Okay.
So I thought we'd have a closer look at these people, the odd and wonderful.
Okay.
So to speak. And today, as we just talked about the big synchronized mass of man and woman and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Commuting.
Yes.
Every single day. We also will be talking about a perfect synchrony of sorts. And we're going to talk about June and Jennifer Gibbons.
June and Jennifer Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay.
Who were twins. Now, their story is somewhat strange because we actually don't know where they were born.
How do you not? Okay.
What we know, they were born in the 60s, in the 1963.
Mm-hmm.
To a Barbadian family, so they're of Barbadian origin.
Mm-hmm.
They were twins.
Mm-hmm.
Their father was an assistant air traffic controller, and due to his work, moved a lot when they were young. So some people say they were born on Barbados. Some sources say they were born in Yemen when he was working at the time.
Okay.
So that bit is a bit unclear. They've moved a lot in their childhood when they were very, very young. Which is kind of, which is not good for kids because kids need repetition. Through repetition, you learn about the world, which is why you see, for instance, children watching the same film or the same TV show over and over again and never get sick of it. It's through that repetition they then learn to embrace the unexpected. It is a whole psychological process.
Okay, because I never... my eldest nephew watched Lion King 27 billion times.
Yes.
I watched Tommy Boy with Chris Farley and David Spade like 9 times in a movie theater over the course of a couple weeks, but I was a teenager at the time. There was never a time when I was a child that I constantly rewatched it, but I've found that my nephews will find something and gravitate for like Finding Dory or Little Nemo and just watch it over and over again. That's something that happens psychologically. Okay.
Yeah.
It explains a lot because I never understood the concept.
It's also in a way it's sort of early socializing as well because you know what's going to happen, so you can start saying the same jokes, etc. But there's a reason for it, and this repetition, it kind of helps you understand the world. So if you move a lot, it's a whole lot more difficult. You seek that repetition, but you don't get it because you're constantly moving.
Yeah.
So June and Jennifer, because they were constantly moving, kind of from a very early time, stuck together.
Yeah.
And sort of they saw each other as the stability, as the repetition in their lives. Eventually, the family settled in the market town of Haverfordwest in Wales.
Okay, that's a different.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a Welsh market town where there were pretty much the only black family there.
I was going to say
in the late 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Needless to say, June and Jennifer. Yeah,
I thought you were going to throw a Bennifer out there.
Were outcasts in that community, outcasts amongst the children because they were different. You know, these kids probably had never seen a black person in their life, and all of a sudden they're in their classroom, so they were bullied a lot. So more and more, June and Jennifer reinforced their attachment towards one another.
Ooh.
To the point, as siblings often do.
Yeah.
I have it with my sister, but it happens to twins as well, but particularly in twins, is they develop their own kind of way of communicating. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a separate language, but it was what was described as an extremely high-speed patois, which reached the point that only the two of them could understand it. And no one else could, not even their family could.
Okay.
But because from such an early stage, they that stability that was between them, that bond was constantly reinforced. What this resulted in is that they would speak to no one but each other.
Oh.
So they were effectively mute to the outside world, but together they would talk in a language no one understood.
Okay.
So this is how they grew up in this Welsh town, and it got to the point where they refused to speak with the family. They refused to be in the same room as everybody else, and when they existed, they did everything in a mirror image. So, or in synchrony. So they would always say they were eating their food. They would always move the same way with the knife, same way with the fork. They would, put it near the mouth in perfect synchrony, like a tube commute. But one would never move in a way the other, if the other didn't move the same way.
Okay.
By the time they were 14,
okay,
people have begun to notice that this is a little bit of an issue.
You think?
That this is perhaps not... Well, I suppose people realize this isn't quite usual earlier. Before that, their teachers always said that they were actually they were excellent at reading, they were excellent at, doing schoolwork. They just didn't interact with anybody, and they only spoke to themselves. So they tried to put them in a mental health facility of sorts, a special kids school, so to speak, where they tried the experiment of separating them.
That couldn't have gone well.
You be the judge. They just went completely catatonic. They refused to move, they refused to speak, they refused to do anything. After a bit of that, the decision was made, perhaps this is not good.
I agree with that decision.
Yeah, it took a few months, believe it
Holy
or
fuck.
you believe it or not.
Oh my god, those poor fucking kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
It took a few months, but it was decided that they should be brought back together. So they were up until the age of 15, after which they finished schooling.
Yeah.
At this age, they just completely withdrew themselves into their room.
Okay.
Their mum brought them food via a sort of a tray system. So it just left outside the door. That was the only interaction they had. They had unemployment benefits. I mean, this was 70, so it wasn't an expectation to go to university, etc. You finished your secondary school and you were done. So that's what happened with them. At this point, they started. Well, they always were voracious readers. Mm-hmm. Even the teachers picked up on that. They were very good at reading. They were always voracious readers. At this point, they started writing as well. They started writing journals. They started writing books. One of them, June, actually they pulled their money from their unemployment benefits and they self-published a book, The Pepsi-Cola Addict, which is about a school child who's seduced by a teacher and as a result gets sent to a correctional facility where they're assaulted by a homosexual guard. Jennifer wrote 3 books, unpublished. One is A Pugilist, which is about a doctor who tries to save their child and kills the family dog to get the necessary transplant. Or Discomania, which is about the murderous insanity that happens at a discotheque hall. These weren't published, but you can sense that these aren't quite your usual stories.
Not from 15-year-old girls from God knows where they were born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They started writing journals, and those journals, there's pictures of them. I don't know if we can attach something, but there's pictures of them. They're quite remarkable. They're page, no margins, just a whole page covered in text, in microfonts. They're super tiny, mm-hmm. and they used to write 2,000 to 3,000 words of journals every single day. And they again show a very creative. They wrote radio plays. They wrote short stories. They show a very creative world that these girls have developed for themselves.
Okay.
But they also, these journals reveal a bit of what was going on, where they saw each other as the means through which the other exists.
Mm-hmm.
But they also realize they themselves that it is not normal. And there are very lucid journals where they, in a very poetic language, they describe each other as a shadow, as something that's just always there, as they're I think they describe themselves as a fatal circle of death, where they give each other reason to be alive, but they're also killing each other by limiting each other because they only can exist together. Mm-hmm. So they realized themselves what was going on, but they couldn't stop it.
I don't see a happy ending coming.
Well, and so they only communicated and laughed together. They laughed a lot.
Okay.
But there are also incidents where they sort of trying to strangle each other with a cord, etc. So it's a very, for lack of a better word, sick relationship. It's a self-perpetuating abusive relationship, where I think it was Jennifer who wrote, I believe you are going insane, and I believe I am making you insane. It is through me that you're going insane. So as they matured, they sort of started seeing boys. Both lost their virginity when they were 17, a week away, apart from each other, both to the same guy.
No. No.
What?
Okay, first off, that guy's a douchebag.
Maybe he didn't know that, It's
Why,
twins. How can you tell them apart?
He thought he fucked the same one twice?
Yeah.
Come on now. Okay.
I mean, come on, as because they weren't bad looking. Two good looking twins come to you and say, "Do you want to have sex with us?" What are you going to say? If you're in a market town in Wales.
Okay, hold on. Was the other ones in the room during the sexual act? Do you know?
I guess it would have said if
Okay.
I couldn't find the thing is, despite it was quite difficult to actually track down enough information about these girls because despite its uniqueness, it isn't actually very well covered, as illustrated by the fact that we still don't know where they were actually born.
Yeah.
But anyway, this obviously this is a lifestyle they couldn't have maintained. They started going out, and when they started going out, they started to turn into crime. So they committed a few petty thefts.
Okay, but why did they need to turn to a crime?
They needed to exist in the world somehow. They couldn't stay in the same room. They needed to get out. So that's how they started meeting boys. Okay, so they meet boys. I want to get my head around this. They meet boys, and then they have sex with the same dude. Yeah.
And then they think, well, the way I could be a part of society is by breaking the law.
It's not quite that. It started, they sort of started hanging out with boys. They started drinking. They started doing drugs. They were unemployed. They were unemployable. They didn't want to. They couldn't go into tertiary education. And they only really knew one another. They only really, it was a sick world they existed in. And as the books they've tried to publish and self-published illustrate, they had a very violent mindset, which they then started fueled by the substance abuse, started taking on into the wider world.
Okay.
So they started committing petty thefts. That wasn't enough. This then escalated, where they burnt down a tractor factory.
Oh Jesus!
Causing £200,000 worth of damage, and finally culminated when they were caught trying to vandalize and set fire to a technical college.
Okay, so drugs, sex, fire. Yeah, I could see this not going bad. Shadow minister somewhere in there? Like what? I'm curious. Now I'm really intrigued to see where they're at now. Okay, keep going.
Yep. So we culminate with them getting caught trying to set fire to a technical college.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were arrested. They went to trial. They had psychiatric assessments, which deemed that they were depressed. They weren't adjusted to society, but at the same time, commended them for their independence and ability to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bizarre sort of, on one hand they're very disturbed, on the other they're actually perfectly normal type theme that keeps running through this story.
Yeah.
But this is kind of where society failed them. This was a chance for intervention, because here we have them actually kind of breaking out of their shell in the worst possible way, through substance abuse and through acting out. So the judge sentences them. I mean, let's take the facts here. These are young girls.
Yeah.
Finished school.
Mm-hmm.
Can talk to psychologists independently. Can communicate with the world at this point. But obviously very close to each other still. These two girls were caught trying to set fire to a technical college.
Okay.
What do you think the sentence was?
Well, unfortunately, because the world at this time didn't understand mental illness, I'm guessing hospitalization?
A similar sentence, a sentence for a similar crime, would have carried 2 years in a youth detention centre.
Yes.
They were sent to Broadmoor Hospital for 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah. Now, Broadmoor is, for those who don't know, Broadmoor is the top forensic psychiatric hospital. It's a prison, but it's for Ronnie Crail's hospital. It's for the worst of the worst, for the criminally insane, basically.
Okay, so is this like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
No, that's just a mental health facility.
Yeah. But still, he took the mental health facility instead of going to prison.
This is a prison,
like lockdown prison.
Yeah, this is for the people.
Violent.
People who go to Broadmoor are the people who you don't want outside. I mean, it's a very high secure prison, but it's you have obviously it's a psychiatric prison, so you also have people there who genuinely need treatment, and once they get treatment, they're fine. They need to serve their sentence, and then they're out. But you also have the criminally insane.
Okay,
it's no place to send a 17-year-old girl,
especially not two of them.
Yeah, they get sent to Broadmoor, and they remain in Broadmoor for 14 years.
Holy shit!
Now, what happens in the period in Broadmoor was difficult. Initially, they were separated again, and a bizarre behavior developed where they took turns in starving and eating. So you had one day when one would eat, the other would starve. The next day, the one that was starving would eat, and the first one was starving. That's how they lived for a while. Doctors found that the nurses would often find them in their rooms, in separate rooms, doing the exact same movement, even though they weren't together. So this was clearly, a rehearsed, practiced way of existing.
Yeah.
So they knew they were doing the same thing, even though they weren't together. Eventually, they were allowed to spend some time together. There was a journalist who took an interest in them and started writing about their story, which is where they became not famous, but known about, and they were actually very willing to engage with the journalists, and the result was quite a few in-depth interviews. They allowed the journalists to see their journals, etc., where they expressed again these feelings of we only live through each other, we can't live without each other, but we know this is not good for us. As part of the testing, they did an IQ test, and they found that these girls had genius level IQ. So, genius level IQ sounds better than it is. It's an IQ of 140 and above, which is, it doesn't mean you're a savant. These girls were, they were normal people. It's just because of how they grew up, it just got way out of hand where they ended up in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But they were obviously very bright girls, creative, but perhaps not in the right ways. I'm just trying to paint a picture of what they were actually like. Eventually, they've made a pact, which was that one of them has to die so that the other one can live a normal life.
Okay.
After 14 years in Broadmoor, they were transferred to a lower security facility as a means of perhaps trying to reintegrate. They were transferred to a lower security facility as a means of, gradually moving them back into the society.
I'm not even gonna fucking cut it.
Oh, you asshole. Reintegrate. See, I said it. Reintegrate them into society.
Took you a while to find that word.
Twat.
Alright, so they're okay. Hold on. 14 years. They've made the pact that one needs to die in order for the other to live.
Yeah.
They're brought now to a less secure mental institution.
Well, that was the aim.
Okay.
They're 31 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The day before their transfer, Jennifer declared, "I'm dying." Out of the blue. Jennifer said, "I'm dying.
Okay.
June, you'll soon be free." Day of the transfer comes. They're transferring them. Jennifer becomes unresponsive.
Mm-hmm.
They arrive at the new facility. Jennifer is in a horrible state. June leans over. Jennifer said, "At long last, we're out," and dies.
How the fuck?
Subsequent investigations
Yeah.
revealed that it was acute myocarditis, There was no trace of poisoning. It was not self-inflicted. It wasn't inflicted by anyone else.
How the fuck did she know?
As it turns out, June did say that she felt her speech was a bit slurry the day before, but I mean, it was just someone talking funny. I mean, come on, if you talk about high-speed patois, speech is funny anyway, but yeah, June said there was something wrong, but at the time it didn't seem like something that would be out of the ordinary, but
okay.
Obviously Jennifer must have perceived that something is seriously not right, and rather than seek attention, she decided, well, if this is me dead, then this is me dead. What it also doesn't say is how many times had this happened before, where she was felt a bit odd and said, I'm dying, and then it didn't happen, so no one talks about it, but it happened this time, so everyone says, ooh, mystical. So I'm just trying to, these weren't, this wasn't voodoo magic.
Okay, that's what I was like, oh my god, she knew she was dying, that's, yeah.
Still very odd. So Jennifer died.
Mm-hmm.
And June was normal. Eventually was released into society. When she was released, she said, I just want to start a family with a good Rasta man like Bob Marley. She still lives in Wales, close to her parents, and by all accounts she's no longer monitored by mental health services, and by all accounts leads a perfectly normal life. Occasionally goes to see her sister's, Jennifer's, grave, where there's a tombstone with a poem written by June that reads, "We once were two, we two made one, we no more two, through life be one, rest in peace."
Nice. Now, I happen to just glance at your screen, and it really does say that she wanted to find a nice Rasta man like Bob Marley. I thought that was tongue-in-cheek, something that you came up with.
No.
That was actually what she... Okay. Well, hey, if that's what she's looking for, more power to her. Hopefully she found herself a nice Rasta man to settle down with and have a couple of Rasta children.
Yeah, I mean, in fallout of this whole case, I mean, there were some parts of the family seriously wanted to push and sue the government for their incarceration at Broadmoor, which was quite possibly hugely inappropriate. Cause if this was a single maladjusted teen, as I said, you just 2 years youth offender, try to get them back on track, but. Yeah. Perhaps because of the odd way they behaved, and quite possibly because of the race thing, it was a vastly disproportionate sentence they were given, one that quite possibly damaged them further, and one that quite possibly contributed to Jennifer's
early demise.
Death.
Okay.
However, would the story have ended differently, perhaps more violently, if they existed in this cycle? Who knows? But it's a very interesting tale of, by all accounts, I mean, it's a remarkable story. But if you rewind all the way back to the very start, these started off as two perfectly normal girls who just happened to be twins, who just happened to move a lot. And that started a snowball effect that just got way out of hand and took 30, 40 years to stop rolling and to unwind. And it meant the death of one of them. But it's just makes you realize the twists and turns life can take.
I'm just shocked that a movie hasn't come out about this. I will post the photos of the
if I find them
blogs or their diary pages. Feel free to go to jsbspod.com, facebook.com/jsbspod. You can follow us on Twitter at JSBSPod, Instagram JSBSPod, and for those of you in this universe that want to give us money, feel free to do so at patreon.com/JSBSPod. You can also do a one-off donation by just sending a PayPal to jasbspod@gmail.com. Now, I have a holiday that's planned out. I will be going to a small island in Greece for a few days to unwind and sit on the beach and pretend like I don't speak English or any other language that anyone will understand, and to completely turn away from the world. But prior to that, some of you might have late summer holidays planned or in the process of planning them. So what we do every week is we sit down with the travel guide extraordinaire, the number one source in all things global, and your go-to advice giver when planning your annual leave, the beer doctor himself. So, Master Radovan, where in the world should we not book a holiday to this week?
Well, you actually might want to.
Okay.
Depending on, how you feel about supporting regimes that some people might call iffy, some people might not, some people call them progressive. Your own president called it an example of democracy, a shining example of democracy. It's a country that's been in the news recently.
Okay.
Quite a lot. Not in the lead role.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking sort of John C. Reilly type role. Supporting character actors. It's a country that is John C. Reilly. In fact, can do all sorts. It is a method character actor.
Okay.
Because it can be a democracy.
Yeah.
On one hand.
Yeah.
And it can support women's rights.
Mm-hmm.
It has also been repeatedly accused of horrible human rights abuses. It's a country that, as a matter of course, shuts down any opposition.
Yeah.
It's a country that promotes peace yet threatens war on people who don't promote peace. It's an island. It's warm.
Mm-hmm.
One of its main things is tourism.
Okay.
So you might actually want to go there.
Bali?
No.
Bahrain.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, it is
Oh, wow.
Bahrain. Well done.
Wait, when you said you might want to actually go there, I was thinking, okay, Cam's going to Bali. Bali sounds good, but I think Bali is part of Indonesia, but I'm going to throw Bali out there just in case. And as soon as you said no, I was like, oh, well, it's warm, it's an island. It must be Bahrain.
Yeah, Bahrain. Odd little place. Originally, supposedly, where the Phoenicians originally came from.
Yeah, I've heard that.
According to Herodotus, although nothing from that era has been found there.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, if you're making any credible statement based on Herodotus, perhaps you should look at yourself and not make that statement. I mean, Herodotus, by all means, read him. They're fantastic stories. They're fantastic travelogues, but it's just
fake news.
Humans with spider heads and raining goats and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a credible. He's more of a CNN type thing than Fox News. Are Fox News still pro-Trump or against Trump? I can't even tell anymore.
Sometimes they're against Trump, sometimes they're pro-Trump, but they're always about Republicans. So,
right,
it's a very tangled web they weave.
Right. So to give you a bit of
flavor
of what Bahrain is driving at.
Yeah.
It's sort of eastern coast of Saudi Arabia. They're sitting there nicely in the Gulf, a little island originally where the Phoenicians supposedly came from. It was one of the first territories in the world to convert to Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Its history is very much one of feuds and struggle for independence, fights between clans and families, and it's as part of the research for this bit, I got sidetracked massively. into just how important family and clan is to the concept of Middle Eastern politics, of Arab politics, and even this present crisis with Qatar, which we might go into at some point, perhaps not now because I've ranted enough, but it's a fascinating tale which we'll get into one day, is very much driven by feuds between families. Bahrain fought over between clans and external forces, part of the Persian Empire, for a while. The Portuguese tried to establish a fort there, driven out by the Persians again, and the clans retook power, then the British came in, and then the British came out, and the clans reasserted their power. The Al Khalifa family eventually began to assert its dominance, struck a deal with the British, which was kind of convenient. British expanded their influence. Al Khalifa family was propped up by the British military machine. Eventually, conflict. Iran wanted to reassert and claim Bahrain as part of its own territory. Complicated international relationships. Independence in 1971. Oil. Hooray.
We're a real country.
Everybody dance now. Doop, 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 doop. Oil ran out. Bahrain was the first of the Gulf states, of the oil-rich Gulf states, to adopt a model of a post-oil economy, where they focused on tourism, on financial services, on infrastructure, on investments, and they've been quite successful at that. And again, I mean, as with most cases in the Middle East, we, particularly sort of us Westerners, want to see in every story a good guy and a bad guy. You'll have a bad time if you want to read about the Middle East with that sort of mindset. There are no good guys in the Middle Eastern tale. There are no bad guys in the Middle Eastern tale, or at least not purely one way or the other. It's all tied into a web. And Bahrain, as I was alluding to earlier, in this John C. Reilly way, is kind of this multiple things at once, where it is just its political system. Also in terms of its military, I mean, we try to give invasion tips as part of this guide as well, which is a good country to invade. Stay the fuck away from Bahrain. You've been warned.
They've got a history of making sure that people can't invade them.
As I said earlier, politically, President Trump, or Mr. Trump, because he's not my president, he's your president, Mr. Trump has praised Bahrain as a model of democratic rule in the region.
He doesn't even understand what fucking democracy is.
Well, no, he does, and I can see why he would praise Bahrain as a model of democratic rule, because I'm pretty sure it's a model he would love to adopt.
That's what I'm saying.
In the United States. So we have the king. Bahrain turned from a state to a kingdom in 2001. We have a king who has full executive power. They have two chambers of parliament, and they have prime minister leading a government. The king nominates and appoints the prime minister and the government, and also nominates the 40 members of the upper chamber of parliament. The lower chamber of parliament is elected.
Okay.
And again, you have constituencies, people vote, you have multiple parties, you have members of both chambers of parliament and the government who are female. You have not just, in terms of religious makeup, Bahrain is majority Shia, but the ruling family is Sunni, and most of the government is Sunni. In fact, more than 50% of the government is from the Al Khalifa family. Again, something Mr. Trump perhaps is looking to emulate. But they have Jewish members, Jewish women lead, in ministerial posts, Christians. So it's a very inclusive, for show type of democracy, where you have that lower chamber of parliament, but the upper chamber can veto any decision the lower chamber makes and override and overrule any decision the lower chamber makes. So it is a democracy technically a constitutional monarchy, but it's ruled by the king. So again, perhaps it's when Mr. Trump calls it a model of democratic rule. He's not necessarily talking to other Middle Eastern countries. He's probably addressing that to his domestic audience, saying,
"This is how I want it."
Bahraini people are doing all right. Why don't we do it like them? And the news reflects this kind of bipolar way of existing, where you have news like women's rights. The upper chamber of the parliament just this week passed new regulations after some fierce discussions and opposition passed laws strengthening women's rights.
Okay.
But not by much. It's stronger inheritance laws, etc. That sort of thing. And women are allowed to run for office.
An office that means nothing.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, it's all very for show. It's something that on the surface functions as a fantastic model, as Mr. Trump called it, but it does function as a model, and as an inclusive modern Arab democracy. But you sneeze accidentally, and this shiny veneer blows off, and you see a fiercely autocratic one-man model of essentially feudal government. You have other news, big news. This was actually one of the headlines, that chefs now must wear gloves in food restaurants in Bahrain for hygienic reasons. So these are the news coming out of Bahrain. News coming about Bahrain is UN calls of release of Bahraini rights campaigner. Bahrain stripping dissidents of their citizenship. Bahrain arrests another activist, after she claimed she was tortured during her previous arrest. The first guy they arrested, they initially released due to poor health, but after a year they re-arrested him. 5 people died after a Shia cleric, his house was raided because he was again stripped of citizenship, etc. So his followers staged a protest, police acted, 5 people died. Newspaper Al-Wasat shut down for spreading false news.
Oh fuck! Trump loves this.
This all stems from. So during the Arab Spring, Bahrain had massive demonstrations in 2011. This is all a fallout from there, where hundreds of thousands of dissidents were arrested.
Slipped on bananas?
Yeah, some slipped on bananas.
Okay.
Some slipped on again. Bahrain, big exporter of bananas.
Bananas. We need to ban them globally.
But at the same time, I mean, it is difficult because is Bahrain technically more progressive than perhaps other countries in the region? Yes. Is it good enough, or for Westerners to accept it? No. And you can even see differences in the American government, where we have this whole, you can't not talk about the Qatar fiasco, because this is all interrelated, because these are 2 rival families, and Bahrain was actually the first country to impose the sanctions against Qatar, and it was later joined by Saudi Arabia, Egypt, etc., a number of other countries, including the economic powerhouse that is the Maldives. And when that happened, Mr. Trump tweeted several times saying, well, Saudis say all the terrorism money is pointing towards Qatar. Finally, we get to root out terrorism. Whilst you have Rex Tillerson urging the Saudi-led coalition to lift their sanctions, because the demands they issued was to curb all diplomatic ties with countries they don't like, to shut down the Al Jazeera news network along with other news networks. So, basically accusing Qatar of supporting Hezbollah, Israel, Iran, and God knows, Cthulhu at the same time.
But did we not already... Okay, hasn't it already been proven beyond a shadow of doubt that it was Saudi Arabia who funds terrorism?
Well, the Iranian foreign minister, another reliable source, but fair enough, this week announced that according to their investigations, 94% of all terrorist plots have been at least partly funded by sources originating from Saudi Arabia.
The investigations that took place after 9/11, hence the reason why the ability for 9/11 families to be able to sue a foreign country for terrorism, if they are proved beyond a shadow of doubt to have funded it, the funds were proved to have come from bank accounts originating in Saudi Arabia to fund the 9/11 hijackers. So what I'm saying is it a matter of Saudi getting in bed with Trump and saying, "Oh no, it's not us, my friend. It's Qatar. It's Qatar."
It's framing it in that way makes sense to a Western audience, but it's not. It's not what it is to them. It's misunderstanding the issue, which is an internal power struggle, because within these countries, there is still that lingering idea of a greater Arabia, if you will, and it is very much countries almost are redundant in a way. It is a family struggle.
Wait. So this is MAGA, Make Arabia Great Again.
Well, it's called a caliphate, but.
Saw what I did there, though, right?
Yes. And hashtag MAGA. You can buy the caps on our web store. So it's the whole Trump thing. It's just they're using that whole thing. It's primarily an internal struggle, and this dates beyond the Arab Spring. But Arab Spring was a recent catalyst where Qatar funded or support, not necessarily funded, didn't oppose these movements, supported them.
Yeah.
Tacitly, and news networks like Al Jazeera were one of the big vocal agents of the change that was sweeping the region, a change that threatened to destabilize the established families ruling the countries. Now, make no illusion that Qatar was doing this out of goodwill in a progressive way. As I said, there are no good guys in this story, as there are no purely bad guys. They're just power-hungry guys.
Yeah.
Which has led to this bizarre situation where there is a standoff. There isn't a side to pick. There isn't a good side to pick. Both countries, you have to remember, Qatar has its own horrific human rights abuses. Mm-hmm. The whole corruption scandal with getting the FIFA World Cup. Bahrain, pretty much the same thing, where it's where they're organizing their Grand Prix, they're doing these sport events, they're portraying themselves as the new faces of Arabian progress. Mm-hmm. You have the new change in power dynamics in Saudi Arabia, which is much the same thing. It is progress as an image, as far as it gets them to their end goal, which is to establish a broader control over the region.
Okay.
And it's a thoroughly depressing situation. So by all means, go on holiday to Bahrain. But for the sake of your safety and your own sanity, either don't ask questions or know full well what you are supporting by going on holiday there.
I mean, realize that the money that you're going to, as it is, tourism's a huge part of what they do. You're supporting not the nicest people in the world, I guess, would be the... The Middle East will always be one of those turbulent kind of not sure what's going on, how is it really working out, you never know who's, and it does come from Western culture, the whole good guy, bad guy thing, so you never know who to trust, kind of.
I mean, it's the whole thing, say, with, I mean, this is why, say, you have Muslim Brotherhood, popular in terms of the people living in the region. I mean, Egypt, etc., won the election before it got banned again, but hugely unpopular amongst the ruling. But one thing I don't wouldn't want people to take away from this is that, again, good, bad. Because we've established there isn't a good bad guy or a bad guy, but there isn't also a good ideology and a bad ideology. I mean, the fact that they don't, democracy is a style choice. It's like being an emo. They've gone Democrat on the surface, but whilst deep inside, it's still not that. Don't think that the alternative, that what these countries have is some sort of, is Islam, is Sharia. Because take the case of the Muslim Brotherhood, which hugely popular in terms of the actual populace group across countries of the Arab world and beyond, Indonesia, etc., but banned in a lot of places and shunned by these leading families. Now, what the Muslim Brotherhood, in very basic terms, stand for is Sharia. Islam isn't just a religion. It's one of those religion plus things, as I call them. It's like Judaism is a religion, but it's also kind of it's
a way of life,
a race of things. It's also a martial art. Judo.
Judaism is a fucking martial art. Judo. Okay. Never looked at it that way, but I know a lot of judos.
Opening minds, opening eyes. Anyway, Islam isn't just a religion; it is also a legal framework.
Yeah.
Which is why people associate Sharia as cutting off hands. It's not. It's a whole legal system. This is one system that was taken perhaps by the more fundamentalist aspects of Muslim, and they focus on that. It's a bit like jihad isn't violence. Jihad is primarily spreading the teachings of Muhammad and spreading Islam through peaceful means, through schools, through charity. It's easier to kill people, which is why, and it gets more news, which is why extremist organizations focused on that. Muslim Brotherhood wants to impose a proper Muslim rule, but if you look at that system, it's almost a socialist system of sorts.
Yeah. Where
everyone is equal under God, and that's the only authority, which threatens the status quo of the families.
Okay.
So, and I'm hugely simplifying here.
Yeah.
But my point is, it's not West democracy, Middle East, Sharia or Islam. Within that sphere, there's a whole lot of nuances, whole lot of interpretations. How do you... And the same conversations we have in Christianity. Do you take it literally? Do you use it as a guide, as a moral, as a metaphor? And anything in between.
Okay.
So, what it boils down to with Bahrain and countries like that isn't, they don't symbolize a side. The story deep down inside is what the story always has been. It is greed, power. It is egomania, onanism, of political onanism of sorts, and it is, I guess, the same that fuels Mr. Trump fuels the political instability or stability in the region.
Alright, so Bahrain, beautiful country to go and visit. Their tourism is second to none because it's such a huge part of their economy, but it's a it's a place where you want to make sure that your religious and political beliefs are not spoken in the streets for the opportunity of bad things happening.
You might be able to get away with speaking, but God forbid you actually try to change something.
Okay, so don't act. Well, that brings to the end another one of our segments on... if you're a travel company and you want to sponsor this set segment and get a specific tourist destination highlighted by the beer doctor himself, feel free to send an email to jsbspod@gmail.com. Facebook message, facebook.com/JSBSpod. You can find us on Twitter at JSBSPod, Instagram at JSBSPod, or patreon.com/JSBSPod.com. And as we have grown accustomed to each and every week, I like to delve through the interwebs to find people who... A common term now with millennials is adulting. Meaning they've got to go to work, they've got to pay bills, and they're just busy adulting. I keep seeing this terminology come up a bit. Okay. I think the phrase would be societying. These individuals don't know how to be a part of society. Okay? They see society one way, and they choose to act in a manner in which you might say doesn't fit well with their neighbors. This week we're going to be staying here in jolly old England.
Oh, that's nice. Where are we going in England?
We are going to Yorkshire.
Yorkshire.
Okay, Yorkshire. How would you like me to play? For those of you who want to go through an entire episode of Nick reading towns or reading through the name of cities throughout the UK, we have a podcast for The Perfect Pint that has me read through multiple town names and the reaction of the beer doctor to my said reading of those town names. So, the individual in Yorkshire, England, he was born in 1898. Now...
They're quite old now.
Yes. We tend to find these people who have troubled childhoods. Father wasn't the greatest father in the world. Maybe mom was a bit abusive. John Reginald Halliday Christie. He had a disciplinarian father, an overprotective mother, some weird sisters, and...
Some weird sisters.
Yeah, because he grew up to be a sexually dysfunctional, control-obsessed hypochondriac.
But what did his
with an inherent dislike of women. So, he had this issue with his sisters. I think his sisters were a bit overprotective as well, along with his mother. And I think he can kind of take it from his mother, but with his older sisters doing it, it caused him to have a bit more issues with it. The nicest way to put it is he had a few issues with it. He left school at 15. During World War I, he served as a signalman. He was involved in a mustard gas attack that he was involved in a mustard attack that he claimed blinded him temporarily and caused hysterical muteness that lasted for over 3 years.
Hysterical muteness. It's very similar to June and Jennifer so far, apart from the mustard gas.
Although most people... Okay, so he said mustard gas attack, this caused me... Well, he didn't say it, but later had said the reason why I haven't talked for 3 years is because of the mustard gas attack. Whereas everybody else said it was a cry for attention.
He needed a twin.
Okay. So his control issues, and this gets into his sexual dysfunction. At around 19, he started to visit ladies of the night.
Oh, okay.
So he started going to the prostitutes at 19. Now, his inability to speak... Okay, so if you're sitting now and you're listening to this and you're single, and you think, you know what? There's nobody out there for me. I've got no game. I'm a fat slob and I have nothing to offer. This was a person who frequented prostitutes. He doesn't talk. In 1920, he wed Ethel Simpson Waddington. And, well, because his sexual dysfunctions continued...
Was she a prostitute?
No. And because his sexual dysfunctions continued, even after the marriage, he continued to see prostitutes.
So, I mean, what was Ethel like? What did she do? Why did she marry him?
Ethel was a girl who...
What did he work as at this point?
He was... postman.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's working as a postman. He met her. He wasn't talking. Doesn't have to talk to be a postman. Which, I mean, look at your postman now. He doesn't talk. He's got his fucking headphones on, and he's just delivering the mail to the wrong address. 7 days late.
Is he?
If you're lucky.
Is your postman married to Ethel?
Quite possibly. So, at this time, there was an issue. Now, we've got the mutinous...
Apart from being married and going to prostitutes.
We've got the prostitution, we've got the mutinous, we have his...
No, he's still not talking.
Still not talking.
How did he marry someone when he's not talking?
Exactly.
Oh, I want to meet Ethel.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying, if you're single and you've got real issues, if this guy can get a man without having to fucking talk. Okay? At all. Around this time, so about 1920 or so, he had a skirmish. Now, what you got to understand about Christie is he's a mute. He's got self-control issues. He's got obsessive compulsive issues, and he's a bit violent. So, he spent 3 months for stealing postal orders while he was being a postman. And then 2 years later, he was put on probation for beating up his neighbor.
I don't make mistakes.
At this time, he also left Ethel, which you'd think, why?
I guess you just walk out if you don't speak.
And so he went to London, leaving her to support herself in Sheffield, and she ended up becoming the owner and brewer of the inspiration for Jaipur. No, I'm just fucking making shit up now, but you looked at me like, oh wow, really? How did you find this out?
I want to hear the story about Ethel.
Okay, now by 29, he was back in prison for stealing again. He's got an issue with stealing and that. Then he spent 9 months in prison. For that, he spent 9 months in prison, and then when he got out, he went to go live with... What would you think? He's a guy that doesn't really talk. He's violent. He likes prostitutes. Who would you move in with?
His sister?
No, a prostitute.
Yeah.
3 months later, he was arrested and sent to prison for 6 months for beating up said prostitute.
What did she do?
Fuck do you mean, what did she do?
I'm just asking what prompted it.
He's just a violent prick, so he beat the shit out of her.
Yeah.
From there, let's see, he stole a car, went to prison, 1933.
He's 35 now, matured, calmed down.
He reaches out to Ethel and asks her if she wants to join him in London.
Oh, how long were they apart from there?
About 4 years or so.
So he built himself a life. He left her because he didn't feel he could support her, moved to London to make it big, established himself, and now he felt he wanted to try for a family again. Fair enough.
She was accepting of his visits to prostitutes because it would relieve his violent sexual urges. Although they continued, which now had included elements of necrophilia.
I'm sorry, what?
Which had now included elements of necrophilia.
How do you element? I mean, what element of necrophilia are we talking about here? Because, I mean, to me, that's kind of a, full dip or no dip at all. You can't have an element of necrophilia.
There's a reason why I picked this guy. So, the prostitute said he was fine there. He had found that wasn't always relieving his sexual need.
Yes, this man tried masturbation. Could have avoided all of this.
And let's just say that there were times that maybe he was going off to the cemetery and having intercourse with freshly buried corpses.
So we're not talking about elements of necrophilia. We're talking about, full blown.
Well, it's a thin line. It's a thin line. You're all in or
no.
There's a gray area.
No, there's a 6 feet wide line. It's a thick line.
Sometimes you just have to try something new.
Oh yeah, fine.
You live near a cemetery.
I'm not going to judge anyone trying necrophilia once. I mean, I think it's important to learn through experience, but if you're a repeat customer, so to speak, talk to someone.
Do not try necrophilia once. Do not go down that road. Christy and Ethel moved to 10 Riglington Place in 1938. Christy's first known victim, killed sometime in 1943, was a prostitute by the name of Ruth Furst. She was a 21-year-old Austrian girl who was having an affair with Christy when he impulsively strangled her during sex. He then buried her in the communal garden. Yes, I said communal garden.
I mean,
as you do.
It is for everyone to use.
Excited by the ultimate power thrill the death of his victim had afforded, he took great care in planning out his next attack. Now, this is when the whole communal garden thing comes into play. Because you don't want to be this guy's neighbor. And the reasoning why? Planning out his next attack was the person of his next attack was his 32-year-old neighbor.
Is this the one who attacked previously?
No, this is the Austrian girl he already killed and buried.
No, but he was in prison for attacking.
No, because it's a new area that they moved to. Muriel Eddy. On November 8, 1944, he invited her over, claiming to be able to cure a reoccurring chest ailment with a special inhaler. Sounds like something you'd do. Which actually contained carbon monoxide. Once she was rendered unconscious, he strangled her while raping her, and she died during the process. She too joined first in the communal garden. In 1948, Timothy Evans and his wife Beryl moved into Riglington Place, and soon Beryl gave birth to a baby girl, Geraldine. Beryl.
Didn't Ethel move back?
Yes, but this is his neighbor. In 1948, Timothy Evans and his wife Beryl moved to Riglington Place, so a neighbor.
Right.
Now, Timothy Evans, he had an IQ of about 12, 14, 16. We'll say 70, but in reality, 12, 13, 14. And he was easily persuaded. Impressionable, so to speak. And he was also kind of a violent man. Between his learning difficulties and his violent act, it was hard for him to find a steady job. And when a year later, Beryl found herself pregnant again, she feared she would not be able to support a second child. Christy claimed to have knowledge of abortion and how to do it. And as abortion in the UK was illegal at the
Right,
time...
that's all the time we have for today's episode. Be sure to tune in next time when we'll be discussing which is the best Teletubby.
Christie claimed to have some knowledge of abortion illegal in the UK at the time and offered to assist the couple. Beryl became Christie's third victim.
Oh.
Incapacitated and strangled her as per his modus operandi. She died on November 8th as a result of his intervention.
I mean, took care of the baby, I guess.
He persuaded Evans that her death had resulted from septic poisoning from the various other abortion remedies that she had tried up until that point, and convinced him not to go to the police. Instead, he was dispatched alone to stay with his mother's sister in Wales, with Christie claiming that he had found a young couple willing to look after the baby Geraldine. Geraldine was never seen alive again.
Oh, maybe she found a nice adoptive family.
Evans' mother, puzzled by the mysterious disappearance of Beryl and the baby, confronted Evans, and on November 30th, unable to maintain his charade any longer, he went to the police in Wales. Wishing to protect Christie, he confessed to accidentally killing Beryl himself by giving her abortion pills and then disposing of her body in a sewer drain. Police in Notting Hill duly investigated and found nothing, and Evans was questioned more intensely a second time, at which time he changed his story and implicated Christie in Beryl's death. A thorough search of Rillington Place on December 2nd, 1949 revealed the bodies of Beryl and baby Geraldine hidden in the wash house in the back garden. Geraldine still had a man's tie around her neck, which had been used to strangle her. Further questioning caused Evans to change his story a number of times, which included a confession of having strangled Beryl over mounting debts, but this may have been due to the limitations of his mental abilities and the strenuous police interrogation. So now this is the husband constantly changing his story because he doesn't understand. Christie was also questioned, but managed to convince the police that he was not involved, with carefully coaching from Christie's wife Ethel also collaborated his version. Evans went on trial on my birthday, January 11th, 20-something years before I was born, 1950, with his ineffective defense team failed to follow up on a number of inconsistencies in the testimony offered by Christie and his wife. Indeed, Christie was a key witness for the prosecution, and his positive impression on the jury was instrumental in Evans being found guilty. Evans continued to maintain his innocence and attempted one appeal, but he was hanged for the murder of his wife and child on March 9th, 1950. Jesus Christ. January 11th he was tried. He was hanged on March 9th. They really didn't let you sit around much back then, huh?
The justice system.
Following the trial, Christie's hypochondria grew steadily worse, and he became depressed and lost a considerable amount of weight. He lost his job at the post office.
He was still had a job at the post office?
Yes.
Fuck's sake.
So if you need a job and you're a serial killer, or you've got violent tendencies, or you're a thief, or you've spent a shit ton of time in prison...
After you've robbed the post office already?
Yes. Are you just depressed now that you can't find a job that you could basically do fuck all in and they'll still continue to keep you employed?
I'll be able to afford a tie to strangle people with.
That was the tie was around the child's neck.
Oh.
Yeah, hence the reason why I stopped prior to reading that, because the visual of it kind of fucked me up.
Maybe she just wore ties.
I don't think so.
Why do you have to be so grim?
He found it difficult to maintain a job over the next few years. Around the 12th of December 1952...
So he was 54 at this point.
Yes, and Ethel Christie disappeared mysteriously around December 12th, 1952. Christie told neighbors that she had gone back to Sheffield, while relatives were told that she had become too ill to communicate with them. Although he continued to send gifts marked as coming from both of them, he had in fact strangled Ethel and placed her body in the floorboards in the parlor.
You know what? This is the one thing Facebook is good for. Because you just can't get away with shit like that. Or she's moved to Sheffield because you just send a Facebook message.
Yeah.
Or a poke or something and realise that person hasn't updated her status for 3 weeks.
Yeah. So what you're saying is Zuckerberg actually saves lives.
Yes.
Okay. Christie also began treating the house with strong disinfectants when neighbors remarked and increasingly bad odors that were coming from the Christie house.
He kept her in the house?
Yeah, under the floorboards. A 25-year-old pregnant prostitute named Rita Nelson was persuaded by Christie that he could assist her with the abortion.
He got it right this time.
She suffered the same fate as Burl Evans on January 1953. Her body was placed in an alcove that existed behind a cupboard in the kitchen. 26-year-old prostitute Kathleen Maloney was gassed and strangled, raped in February of 1953, and she joined the Nelsons in the alcove behind the cupboard. Victoria McLennan, Christie's final victim, 26 years old, was gassed, strangled, raped, and then also stashed in the alcove. Now, this must be a fucking huge alcove.
I mean, that should have been a feature of the place.
No shit, you're selling that place, and I would just be like, but I have an alcove that'll fit 3 dead prostitutes. Like, that would be how you sell it. It's like when I bought a car years and years and years ago, and the guy opened the trunk up and said, shit, you could fit 3 dead bodies in it. And I actually bought the car because he said you could fit 3 dead bodies in it. And I thought that amount of salesmanship deserved to be purchased.
Should have come back 5 months later. Sorry, mate.
Couldn't fit 3.
False promises.
Only 2.
Full refund.
Okay, so Christie then papered above the cupboard that concealed the alcove, but could do very little about the increasingly bad odor coming from the three
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Why can't I say that word right now?
How do you reintegrate that back into your monologue?
But could do very
Baga.
little about the increasingly bad odor coming from the 3 decomposing bodies. He finally moved out of Rillington Place on March 20th, 1953, defrauding the family who took up residency there. He took 3 months' rent from them when he was not authorized by the landlord, and they were forced to move out within 24 hours. With the flat now empty, another Rillington Place tenant was permitted by the landlord to use the kitchen, and when he was renovating the place, he discovered the concealed cupboard and the bodies and immediately notified the police. Given the previous murders that had been committed there, a thorough search was initiated which revealed not only the 3 kitchen cupboard corpses, but also Ethel's body under the parlor floorboards and 2 other bodies in the garden. The manhunt for Christie began, and he was apprehended 10 days later on March 31st, 1953, having run out of money. He made statement about the 4 murders willingly, but had explanations for all. His wife's had been a mercy killing. She had been choking to death anyway when he strangled her.
I shouldn't be laughing. But I mean, that's kind of brilliant. I mean, it's like, if you stab someone multiple times and you say, well, the one that actually killed them was because I was just trying to help them from all the previous ones.
They were already dying. I just sped along the process for them. If anything, it was euthanasia. Okay? I did them a favor. The 3 prostitutes had been aggressive and had taken advantage of him, driving him to defend himself. His confession...
By gassing and strangling them.
And then raping their dead corpses. You get the prostitute, right? You got the hooker, your wallet's sitting there. She's doing her thing, and she reaches up and grabs a hold of your wallet. Now she's on top at this time, so she's got wallet in one hand, her other hand's around your throat. What are you supposed to do? Gas, strangle, rape her dead body. I mean, that's all you can do, right?
It's just like isn't that the 7th Amendment or something? It wouldn't surprise me with your country.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, his confessions were riddled with lies and invasions. When confronted with the evidence of the garden corpses, he admitted those murders too, and at one point also admitted to the murder of Beryl Evans, although he had described it again as a mercy killing. Now, as you do in London, his trial at the Old Bailey commenced on June 22nd, 1953, with the charge of murdering his wife. Christie's defense counsel decided to enter a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. And all the murders were brought on to support his insanity plea.
So, he was accused of one murder.
Yes. Being charged with one murder.
And he used all the other murders he confessed to as supporting evidence for his one murder.
Yes.
This man, I mean, Jesus Christ.
It's fucking real. That's the bad thing. I don't know how.
I mean, this is someone who's really committed to applying the laws of logic to the extreme.
Alright, so the prosecution countered that his concealment of the crimes and after the fact showed an appreciation for the wrongfulness of his acts, and the judge instructed the jury to consider only whether he was insane at the time in which he killed his wife, which was the charge under consideration. The trial lasted only 4 days, and the jury returned a verdict of guilty after deliberating for an hour.
It's mostly spent drinking tea and going, Jesus fucking Christ.
What the fuck is wrong with this guy?
What the hell?
Why are we here? Christie was sentenced to death to hang just over 2 weeks later at the Pentonville prison in London on July 15, 1953.
Pentonville represent.
Following Christie's trial, an investigation was undertaken to test Timothy Evans' guilt. It determined after an investigation of only 11 days that Evans had indeed killed his wife and daughter. 2 years later, an attempt was made to launch another investigation.
So hold on, so they were killed twice?
No. They're saying... So they killed Evans, the slow man.
Yes.
And an investigation came back with... Somebody said, oh, well, he was friends with this Christie guy. Maybe Christie killed them.
But Christie confessed, didn't he?
He didn't confess to the daughter. He did confess to Beryl, but not the daughter's murder. And he was never charged for it. So there was an investigation to see whether or not they rushed to decision on Evans. A second investigation was launched, and the extensive evidence was produced to suggest that the first investigation had been rushed and skewed to support the official verdict, avoiding the question and methods by which the police had extracted Evans' confession. Finally, an inquiry conducted in 1965 concluded that Evans had strangled his wife but not his daughter, and he was granted a posthumous pardon in 1966 as he was tried and hanged for the killing of his daughter and not his wife. Christie never confessed to killing the baby, despite having admitted to all the other murders while in prison in the weeks before his execution, so it seems unlikely the guilt of Timothy Evans will ever be definitively established. Christie was hung on July 15th, 1953. And that is your report on where to get a house in the UK. Yorkshire is obviously London, wherever in London this took place, is the place to go if you need an alcove that can hold 3 dead prostitutes.
Did they reanimate Evans?
No, he was just after his death, he was pardoned for the death.
But they kept him dead.
Yeah, they couldn't bring him back to kill him again. Because they still think he killed his wife, even though Christie's admitted to killing his wife.
So, hold on. So, I mean, if I understand this correctly, as far as the law is concerned...
Yes.
The wife was murdered twice, whilst the kid just kind of snuck into the ground with the tie around her neck?
Well, no one was ever charged with the death of the child.
But I mean, look, if I'm a government trying to cover up my tracks, and
Yes.
as former president of the United States, I already have this experience from earlier on in the episode. If I'm a government trying to cover up my tracks, and I've executed someone because of 2 murders,
Yes.
and then someone else confesses to one of the murders, and I do an investigation, I conclude that other person, the other guy confessed to, that other guy did, but the other one was actually committed by the guy.
Yeah.
And in that way, my actions are justified.
Okay. But we have a confession for the death of the mother, Beryl.
Yes.
And it's proved that, okay, Christy confessed to it and said he did it.
Yes.
But we're proving, no, actually Evans did it. And we convicted Evans of the death of his daughter.
Yes.
But we proved through extensive research that he didn't actually kill his daughter.
So they proved that he didn't kill his daughter.
Yes.
That's very bad covering up. I have to say, that's very bad covering up.
And when there's a serial killer who confesses to have been the one to kill it, yet you already hung a guy 3 months after convicting him for said murder, and proof that he actually didn't murder his child, you have somebody you're going to hang for the murder of the wife who you already hung the husband who actually didn't kill it because it was the guy who you're hanging for that already admitted that he committed the murder. I would get a headache if I was the one having to deal with this, and I have a headache now going through it.
I have a headache from the fact that they've executed a guy for 1 murder.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter at JSBSPod. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/JSBSPod. Give us money, patreon.com/JSBSPod. You can send a one-time donation to PayPal. That's jsbspod@gmail.com. You can also use that email to get Radovan involved in any debate that you might have. Also, be sure to go to iTunes and review, because hashtag iTunes reviews matter. So rate, review, subscribe, share with a friend. Everything that we talked about today, there will be links to the sourcing on jsbspod.com, where you can see not only the GIFs and videos of the individual at 7-Eleven who went crazy over the 75-cent decline, but also if we can get a hold of those pictures of the journals that were written by June and Jennifer. Those will be posted as well. And as always, we want to thank you for tuning in, and feel free to reach out to us and let us know how we're doing. Now, normally I say that's roughly 1 hour, 2 hours, or whatever it is of your life you're never going to get back, but in reality, I have no absolute clue how long this episode's going to be. So I'm going to say that that's roughly a insert amount time here of your life you're never gonna get back.
I'm being hysterically mute. I've had mustard earlier today.
A man in a trench coat in the dark. A woman's lost a kid sleeping in the park. Rag suits, daggers, Park Avenue. Everybody wants to talk to you about just some BS of theirs. Just some BS. Just some BS of yours. Just some BS. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS of ours.